Hello and welcome back to another product profile. This one I'm very excited to tell you is for the new Durafly Mark 1A Spitfire. You see it here in front of me. In a minute we'll go out to James and the guys in New York and they will really put it through its paces. Tom Hunt will be out there as well. Tom Hunt, as some of you may or may not already be aware, had a hand in the initial design stage of this model and subsequent testing. This aircraft is actually modelled on some of his original profile 3D drawings. We then took those designs from him with his permission and cooperation and really fleshed it out into the model that you see before you, the Durafly Mark 1A Spitfire. So without further ado, let's hand over to them, and then when we come back we'll go into the build, a bit more of the detail, and we'll show you some nice pictures and images of the model too. So James, guys, over to you guys in New York.
All right, thanks, Stuart. And we're out here with Tom Hunt, our warbird pilot extraordinaire, and he's going to run us down on the Spitfire Mark 1 here. So, Tom, we know you were very involved in the development of this, if you want to tell us a bit about that.
Sure, yes. Stuart had approached me and said that he wanted to do an early Mark Spitfire to complement the Mark 24 Spitfire that's already been released. So I told him I had a pretty extensive database that I created over the years from all my documentation that I've collected. I probably have over $800 in books on the Spitfire. I built many of them over the years, many Spitfires. And I actually created a three-dimensional database which he could start from. I did do some modifications to that 3D database before I gave it to him so that it would be more appropriate for molding into an 1100 millimeter Spitfire. And then I proceeded to give him all my documentation so that he could produce a fine scale model. And he has certainly done an excellent job at that.
How does this compare to other Spitfires you've flown? Because you said you built a few of them, so how do you like it compared to
Yes, I've flown everything from the small flying styro kits of back in the 1990s all the way up to some very large scale Spitfires, up to 80-inch Spitfires over the years. And I was pleasantly surprised that this airplane flies bigger than it really is. It's not twitchy like the little FSK one I had some years ago. Very rock solid airplane, and the scale detail can't be beat.
Do you want to go take it up for a flight?
Sure, I'd love to.
All right, let's go do it. All right, so we're all set up. You ready to go, Tom?
I'm ready to go.
All right, let's see what she's got. That looks great. Super easy to take off. Tail comes right up.
Yeah, it's best to bring the tail up not long after you get rolling because it steers much better. It gets a little squirrely on the ground if you try and hold the tail down too long. There's that fine line between too much and too little with the takeoff with the narrow stance.
But otherwise, ground handling seemed pretty great.
Yeah, no issue on pavement, and I have flown this model many times off the grass. As long as the grass is not thick, it takes off quite handily in the grass too. It's actually a little easier to take off in the grass. It goes a little bit straighter.
All right, now since we're on a fresh pack, you want to show us a nice high-speed pass?
Sure. All right, coming through, making the dive into show center.
Moves along pretty well, actually.
She's at least as fast as any of the other 1100 warbirds I've flown for Stuart. The Spitfire has clean lines, helps a bit too. Mm-hmm. All right, I think this time I'll do a slow roll for you.
All right, let's see how it goes. Wow, super slow. Looks great though.
Yeah.
Looks great. Want to give us a loop on the next pass?
Sure, this airplane loops beautifully. Just a little bit of right rudder as you go through the loop to hold it straight. Mm-hmm. Got plenty of power to do it on big, nice round loops. Little power back at the top.
That's pretty.
And add some power coming through to finish.
That's great. Nice and even right and level right at the bottom. That was great. Anything else you want to show us that's cool? It's a warbird. Doesn't do anything too crazy.
No, it's a good flying model. Obviously we don't want to upset anybody by holding this airplane inverted because a full-scale Spitfire couldn't fly inverted for more than a couple seconds. So we'll just do a high-speed pass and do a climbing chandelle turn to the right, which always looks pretty at a warbird meet, full-scale warbird meet. Guy comes down low, pulls the nose up, and does a climbing, sweeping right-hand turn away from the crowd.
That's great.
It does have a nice presence in the air, besides it's the Spitfire's looks, but the way it flies, the smoothness of which you can dial the controls into. Now we'll come through with a little bit of a Farnborough pass, which is the wing up.
Show us the cool scale details. Looks great.
She does track well. I mean, I had quite a bit of rudder in there to try and hold the nose up while I'm doing that 3/4 knife edge, but it's a warbird. It flies like a warbird. It's just a good, solid flying little airplane.
You want to throw us a nice gear down pass with it?
Sure, okay. We're going to drop the gear. Some slow flight with the gear down.
Nice dirty pass. Looks great.
And we'll retract the gear. We'll come through one more time with the gear and the flaps this time.
Now, will she slow down a lot with the flaps?
Oh yes, you'll be surprised. The flaps don't add a whole lot of lift, but they do add a lot of drag. And that's very helpful when you're flying on calm days on short fields.
Oh yeah, she slows down a lot. Look at that. That's great.
I only have a slight headwind this morning, probably less than a couple miles an hour.
Yeah, it's beautiful out right now. But she's still slowed down great.
Yep. All right, one more quick pass through and I think we'll land her.
All right, sounds good. Now we're getting about 5-6 minutes flights right now.
Yeah, a good 40C or plus 4S pack, 2200. I feel very comfortable telling people you can do at least 5 minutes of aggressive flying, and you could probably do a bit more if you're more like a lazy Sunday flyer and just being not quite so aggressive with the model. I've got about quarter stick. I got the flaps down. Got about a quarter throttle just to help her down. And let us settle.
Beautiful. All right, Tom, that looked great. Looks like it's a great flying model again from Stuart, Durafly. Should be a nice addition to everyone's hangar, right?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic that this is going to be a good model for a lot of the guys out there that want a good scale Spitfire that they are proud to take out to any field.
All right, well, thanks again for coming out with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that, guys. That was the flying portion of the product profile for the Durafly Mark 1A Spitfire. I'm going to talk you through not the whole assembly of the model, more an overview of the assembly and any poignant parts of the build I want to bring your attention to. We'll stop, we'll pause, and I'll talk about those parts before we move on and complete the model. I would like to point out this famous quote on the front. Winston Churchill, very, very famous quote, and thought it was very apt to apply it to the box art for the Spitfire. Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. The few, of course, being the men and women, the pilots of the RAF during the Battle of Britain, who successfully fended off the Luftwaffe and stopped the German invasion of the UK, of Britain, hence the Battle of Britain. So, very poignant time, very poignant model. And now, without further ado, let's have a look at the contents of this beautiful box. Okay, so here we are. We've got the contents of the box laid out on the table. As you can see, very minimal part count, which is excellent for you guys. That's what we've worked very hard to achieve. Before we go into the details of the items, I just want to pull up the box again. Not only because it's such a nice box, but also because somewhere on here we have the specifications, and we should just touch on that again. So here we go. 1100 millimeters, as you'd expect from Durafly. It has the Aerostyle 3636. 770 kV, better motor for that 4S setup, 3M 4S setup, we'll come to that in a minute. 50 amp speed controller and 6 9-gram servos throughout, as you can see. So put that back down. Now, to the contents. Well, you've got the wing, you've got the fuselage and a few parts, that's essentially it. So looking around, what do you get in the box? Well, you get the wing exactly as you see it. It comes with the undercarriage obviously pre-installed, and those very, very nice scale split flaps. You see how we've actually got the full flap effect on the model this time. You'll notice some parts here, or some missing parts here. They are in fact the underwing radiators. You've got the bigger one and then the smaller one. They are very easy to attach, as you'll no doubt find out for yourself in the instruction manual. And then this beautiful fuselage. Now, unlike the Mark 24, we've actually put a lot more effort into getting this fuselage to a much more convenient stage for you customers. The rear of the wing fillets are actually pre-installed on the model itself, so you don't need to glue on any additional exterior parts, which is great. The fit also is superb. If I just guide those in, you'll see just how good the fit is, and there's also a reassuring click. Now that click is by design. What it means is you are fully engaged, and you can now screw the wing on. Just do it there, back there as well. There we go. And you'll see you've got a nice, virtually seamless wing join, and at this point you just screw it on. But of course, before we can get to that point, put everything back down. Now the first thing you'll want to do, and it says this in the instruction manuals, is actually flex the control surfaces and apply the decals. Again, this is all in the manual. I'm not going to go through and physically do all of the build right now because that would be boring, but I will touch on a few little things as we go through the build. Until then, you'll see the time lapse up there on the camera. So the first 2 points I do want to touch on before we set off the build, it is in the manual, is first of all, flexing the control surfaces. You'll want to do this for every single surface. These hinges, these hinge lines, sorry, are actually reinforced, so they're quite stiff out of the box. So you will need to flex them back and forth just to loosen them up. It's the same on all control surfaces. So again, with the elevator, just gripping it with your hand, flexing those back and forth. That's a very critical point. You will strain a servo if you don't do that. The next thing to decide on is what decal set to apply. Now, like the P40, it comes with several options, well in fact 2 options. As you know, the Mark 1A Spitfire, as you see it here, is representative of the Battle of Britain, and that's a very specific scheme, so we've actually given you 2 different schemes to choose from. You can look at these pictures that we have up now. One of them is EBG. That was the aircraft flown by Eric Locke, Pilot Officer Eric Locke, during the Battle of Britain. At that same time, we also offer you a different scheme, as you can see on this picture here. This is DAZ. This was flown by Pilot Officer Bob Doe. 2 remarkable men from the Battle of Britain, both aces in that battle, and you have the option to represent either one of those 2 pilots on your Mark 1A Spitfire. I actually highly recommend that you apply your choice of decals first before you get on with the actual assembly of the model. It just makes it a whole lot easier. So we'll quickly touch on some of the finer points of the decal application, and then we can get on with the build proper. Now we're going to start with the wing roundels because essentially they're the easiest to do, and they are the regular sticker type. Now a few points of note. Now to avoid this kind of thing, the bubbling essentially, that's caused when it's an uneven surface underneath the decal. Now again, this would have been, this should have happened on most examples at the factory, but if you do find a few of these mold marks essentially in the area where your decal will be, and you can check that with the manual that you have. This is obviously my copy of the manual, but you'll have a hard copy, and for my own reference I'll just put this one down here. Now you can check by looking at the manual exactly where your decal should be, and you should find that already all of these vent marks are outside of that decal space. However, let me give you a little tip. What you want to do, first of all, establish exactly where your decal needs to be, and if you look at the manual on the screen here, you can see approximately where the decal wants to be on the wing. If you find these vent marks in that area, what you can do is just remove them with a very sharp scalpel blade. It doesn't damage the model, but it does remove those marks and gives you a much better finish on the decal. So with the blade, just push it along like so, and you'll just see the tip of those mold marks removed. As I said, most of you probably won't have to do this, but if you do find marks like that in your decal area, it's worth just spending a bit of time with a razor blade to remove them for a much better finish. So let's get on with applying the decal. I've got the decals out in front of me here. Point of note on the decals, there are actually 2 different types. First of all, you'll be familiar with this type of decal. This is the vinyl type decal that came with the P40, for example. The detailed parts, the lettering and the maintenance marking and all the smaller parts are done in this vinyl form, and I'll come on to why in just a second. The bigger decals, the roundels specifically, they're all done with the regular sticker form. Now the reason for that, if we were to do these letterings with the blanks in the middle in regular sticker form, then you would actually have an ugly, clear piece of sticker in the middle, and it wouldn't look very nice. So the lettering and all the small details we've done in the vinyl type, and then the big circles with no empty spaces in the middle, the roundels, sorry, we've done in the regular sticker forms. So that does mean you'll have to pay somewhat attention to application of the decals. Again, it's mentioned in the manuals, and we'll quickly touch on it right now. Tools for this build, not very many. Just want to quickly touch on what you will need. Later on you will need a pair of pliers for the ball links. You may need a little bit of contact adhesive for some of the small plastic detailed parts, but for this particular part, a covering iron or even a household iron with a t-shirt or a cloth wrapped around it is very helpful. And again, we'll come to why in just a second. Now we're going to start with the wing roundels because essentially they're the easiest to do, and they are the regular sticker type. Now, one other handy tip when applying the decals to not damage the model, I'll just move the fuselage out of the way. To not damage the model, it's best if you can put down a cloth of some kind. Here's a shirt I was wearing. Just put that down, and that will steady the model nicely. Now, with the decal off of the backing paper, position it approximately according to the manual. That's basically the position I want it now, checking against the manual. Now, when you first apply it, you want to just apply in the middle first, just rub with your finger. You'll want a cloth nearby, and I'll show you why in just a minute. And you rub from the middle out, otherwise you'll get bubbles stuck underneath the air bubble stuck underneath the decal. Push down so all the creases are filled. Now with it basically down, this is when you want to go over it with a cloth just to make sure every last bubble is out. Okay, so there we are. There is the first decal applied. Now I've just got the rest of them to do. Now I'll come back to the and finish off these wing markings in a second. But before I do, let's talk about the vinyl decal. So if I put the wing down, bring the fuselage up. Here we go. Now again, if you look at the instruction manual, you will see these ones here. The vinyl types for the letter. Again, these are the more detailed ones, so vinyl type of decal is much more appropriate. What you'll need to do with these is, these are actually on a sticky front, if you like, a sticky fronting tape. You'll need to rub the decal before you do anything, because this rubbing will put the decal on the fronting sheet, and then it will make it easier to lift it from the backing sheet. Now I'll explain what I mean. Again, it's just like the P40. Rub on the clear plastic, and even by peeling the paper, you'll get the decal, there you go, to stick. I wonder if you can see that there, to stick on the underside of that front plastic sheet. That's important. Now you can go ahead and lift the whole thing off and apply it to the model. Now also note, the letter spacing on the fuselage markings is exactly at the right proportion you would need to get the correct positioning. So you would position this over the fuselage, and then that gap in the middle is exactly where the fuselage roundel goes, as you can see on the instruction manual here. So that is done on purpose. It's done to help you when applying the decals, and we'll go ahead and finish that now. Now, with the vinyl type, lifted it off, and you now have to position it over the fuselage, as I said, remembering that the roundel will go exactly in the center. So again, I'm referencing the manual, and it looks to me to be approximately about there. Again, you want to start from the center with all of these. So here we go, pushing down from the center. So only the actual decal you need to stick. You don't need to stick the backing down. So just position that. Apply pressure there. Apply pressure. Keep rubbing down. Again, here we go, pushing out from the center. Remove any, or negate, remove any chance of air bubbles. There's the E. Pushing that down nicely there. Now, I'll come to lift this off, and when I do, we can position one of the fuselage roundels right in the center. Now, the next crucial part with these types of vinyl decals is removing this fronting. You need to pull it off to the side. If you pull it up, it's going to lift the decal off the model, which you don't want. So again, using your scalpel or any tool like that, just get to the edge, lift that backing up, and then with your other finger, I think you can just see there, you just start rubbing it as you pull away. And then again, once we're finished with that, we'll go over it with a cloth. And you're pulling away to the side. I think you can see that clearly there now. And you'll notice that it doesn't affect the paint here, and you haven't pushed it down there. Pulling very horizontally there. And get a better shot there. There we go. Now it's lifted off just here, so I need to just make sure I push down those leading edges of the decal there. come back again, and now hopefully when we do it, there we go. See that the decal's applied nicely. Keep going, keep going, and done. Discard of that. We get our shimmy cloth, and we just rub. That's the beginning of the fuselage letters. Now we can lay it back down again. I'll bring my shirt back over. And we're ready for the this other type of decal, which we've already seen on the wing. This is the normal sticker type, and this one is much easier. Just peel it off like so, and then you just position it according to your eye and the instruction manual. And I believe my eye is telling me it is about there. Again, rubbing down with a cloth, really getting those panel lines. That is looking pretty good. At this stage, you'll probably be feeling very pleased with yourself until you realise you've then got the rest to do. So let's carry on with that. Now, the final stage for the decal, more so for the vinyl type than for the standard sticker type, is just to take a covering iron. You want this on medium heat. We sell these HobbyKing covering irons. You'll see an annotation for it here. Very useful tool. Unusual on a foam model, but needed for these types of decal. The reason being is it just seals the edges so that over time, in all the different temperatures you'll experience when flying a model throughout the season, that those decals don't lift at the edges. Let's just bring that up, and you just want to touch, just to seal it on. Just press lightly and only on a medium heat. It won't damage the foam at all. Probably want to take a little more time than I am, but it really helps the decal sink into those panel lines and adhere. There we go, put that to one side. Final rub down. She's looking pretty good. On with the rest of the decals. Now we are getting there with the main decals, but what you may notice, and I'll bring your attention to, are these red ones with little holes on them. These red ones are actually the covers for the guns. In real life, they were applied to the guns before every flight to stop freezing at altitude and to stop dirt and stuff getting into the gun barrels. And what it meant for the fitters back on the ground is that when the plane came into land and these had been shot through, they knew that their pilot had seen action. But these are actually the vinyl type. So again, you lift them off and you'll see that it's, maybe you can see that there, you can see it's already got a hole cut out, and they are applied thus. You put it, I think you can get a close up there, line the hole up directly over the hole of the gun, and there you go, roughly about there. And then of course lift the backing off. And there you have your gun cover. Very authentic, and now I've just got the rest to do. Okay, so that's the basic stickers done. I just want to bring your attention to these guys. We'll get a close-up of those. What these are the maintenance stickers. They're the small little details that other manufacturers don't include in their models, but we do. But no, what they are actually is maintenance markings. In real life, you'd have these all over the full size to denote every little hatch and every little access area for the full-size ground crew to quickly service the aircraft on the ground. I'm going to show you the ones that go, for example, because I'm not going to do them all, the ones that go on the underside of the elevator here. And if you look on our manual, you can see here, we've got these ones marked S, R and T, and they are clearly marked by the S, R and T. And we'll just apply those to the elevator exactly as it shows in the manual. Now, of course, with the decals applied, we can actually begin the build. Believe it or not, the build itself is going to be much quicker than the application of the decals. So let's get on with that now, and I will stop you, as I said, if there's anything of note, but it's really straightforward. The instruction manual is made up of maybe just 7 or 8 steps in the actual assembly itself, so let's get on with it. Okay, so the build is coming along nicely, the towel is on and all the push rods on the wing are connected as they should be. One thing I wanted to bring your attention to, some of the nice details on this model include LEDs. One of them is in the rear of the fuselage just here. Now, to connect that, there's actually a positive negative coming from the fuselage, and there is from the gear channel of the wing, actually this is the important part, an option, well, not an optional, but an additional connector. It's actually labeled LED, and that is for, as you may have guessed, to connect to the LED in the fuselage. That will power the LED in the fuselage, and the ones in the wings are already harnessed in here. So remember to connect the LED connector to the LED from the fuselage when connecting the wing, which we'll do now. Just a little thing here, it's the small details that really count. When you have finished threading through your cables and you're ready to push the wing on, you will hear, when you push down, that click. That click is the reassuring sound that your wing is perfectly keyed in place, and you can use the supplied 3x10mm bolts to secure the wing to the fuselage. Now, with the wing on, we're pretty much getting to the final stages. All that's remaining are the small details, and I'll talk about those briefly now. These are the plastic parts. These are the little scowl details that really make the difference. You've got the aerial for the back. You will need to glue that on. The only parts of the model that you do need to glue on, you've got a really beautiful little rear windscreen mirror, so you can check up on those Jerry's coming up behind you. You can see it's got reflective mirror tape on it as well. That will need gluing on there. And then we have just this little pedo tube, as you can see. There is a tiny little slot for that here, and again with some contact adhesive that just glues in place nicely there. After those parts, it's about fitting the propeller and setting up the model. Now, one thing I will say at this point, before you attach the propeller, now is the time to install your receiver and get the model set up before you put the propeller on. Much safer that way. So let's go ahead and get that done. Now, for the Spitfire, a 6 or 7 channel, 6 channel is actually fine, a receiver is recommended. I'm going with what I've got right now, which is actually a 8 channel. Bit of a squeeze for an 8 channel, to be fair. Inside the fuselage here, back here is where the receiver goes. A 6 channel would be better because by design the Spitfire is a very slim and slender and sexy beast of a model, which means there's not so much room inside compared to, say, a T28 or a Corsair. So with my receiver installed, I'm just now going to slip it in back there. There's plenty of room for that, and I'm just going to very roughly, you will obviously do a much neater job, push all those wires back there. They are out of the way, that's good. Now at this point we can talk about, put this back down, batteries. As you are already aware, I'm sure, you can run the Spitfire, like the P40 before it, on both 3S and 4S. What is thoroughly recommended by me is the 40C Zippy Compact 4S. This is the best pack for this model. 3S is very, very good for pure scow flying, but you want a little bit more, and let's be honest, we always do. Do try the 4S, it will be worth it. And also with this 4S, you will not need to add any additional weight to balance the model. With the 3S, even the high Nanotech A-Spec G2 65C pack, you will need to add a bit more weight to the nose. Speaking of which, if you do need to add a bit more weight, underneath the cowl here and back about this point here, there is actually a little opening, and in there you can insert some dollar coins or pound coins or even euros to make up that additional weight you would need for that 3S pack. But as I said, I'll be using the 4S, and I thoroughly recommend you do. It carries the weight very well and it flies nicely. Now with this Zippy Compact, it's very, very straightforward for the installation. Essentially, lift the strap, obviously, sorry about that, and slide as far forward as possible and secure that in place. Obviously, much better than I am now. That position right there is bang on for the CG. You will not need to do a thing if you fly with that pack. Okay, so my workbench is now pretty much looking like yours will, a little bit messy, but we're at the stage to put the propeller on. You'll notice that it's still powered, but you do that, see, I've got a safety switch, safety first. Obviously if I click it on and it's armed, but this is completely safe now, so I can demonstrate this to you. This is the propeller, nice one-piece unit on this one. A slight change from the regular programming. We decided that designs like this are actually much more suitable to, especially for rough landings. Now I've put the spinner backplate on, that keys into the back of the motor as you see there. And the reason why we're mentioning this, not because it's complicated, because it's not. If I can find the final part, this is a crucial part. You can't just use a regular nut. Being a Spitfire, we need to get the weight as far forward as possible. So we've actually used a very hard or very heavy steel nut on this, and it is needed. So you must make sure you use this. It's included with the model. And of course that would then screw on like so, nice and tight. Then of course getting your trusty screwdriver, everybody has it, just tighten that down. Now whilst I'm doing this, it's worth mentioning, the propeller should be balanced out of the box, but what I'd like to recommend for you guys to do is just to give it a final check to make sure it is balanced and to maximize the efficiency of the powertrain. Final step is then to put the spinner on. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen, the Mark 1A Spitfire from Durafly is now assembled. You've already seen it fly and you can see just how beautiful it flies in the air, and now you can see how beautiful it looks on the ground. Keep in mind this one I've got in front of me is a old pre-production sample, so it's a little bit rough around the edges and a little bit worse for wear. If you picked up on that, well done, but don't worry because your versions will be brand new in box and even better than this. Speaking of finish, it's pretty much there in terms of level of quality and finish with the P40 on the surface finish I'm referring to here. It's certainly as good. Where it's better is in the flight performance and in fact the scale detail. It's a little lighter, it's actually quite a bit lighter than the P40 even on Forest. We learnt some lessons there, and the outline is just phenomenal. Thanks again to Tom Hunt, from whose original 3D drawings the profile of this model is based on. And Durafly got hold of it and really made it an excellent model. I just want to touch before we go on just those few details. As you can see, it is beautifully detailed. You've got the rear cockpit mirror, you've got the aerial, and if I turn it over, you'll also see, everyone likes to see the gear working. There we go. And of course those split flaps, let's get those down. I've got it on a slow system on my Tyrannus, but as you can see, you've got almost 85 degrees of deflection there, which is very scale. Painted different interior green inside as well. They look beautiful. I'll close those up. Also, you'll notice navigation LEDs. I think you can just see the one on the top there. And if you look on either wingtip, the right one there and the left one, they are of course all pre-installed. And then the cockpit detail. It's not massively detailed, but it does have a nice bit of detail. I think you can just see there, we'll get some close-ups of the rear cockpit and also the dash and the pilot newly made pilot for this model. All in all, beautiful modelling, stunning on the ground, exquisite in the air, a real pleasure to fly. Thank you very much for watching this. We hope you enjoy your Spitfires. I think right now, or by the time you see this, it should be around Christmas time. So I hope you see some of these Spitfires under your tree. Look out for more beautiful, stunning scale models coming from Durafly in the not too distant future, and sports models besides. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.